Hello and welcome to an all-new adult erotica in comics. You're watching SVon82 and I'm Scotty, your underground comic loving friend. This week's video will be about a magazine that helped introduce a whole wave of European artists to North American collectors. It wasn't bound by the Comic Code Authority, so the artists were free to do a lot more. You got to see a lot of really cool, beautiful, brilliant artwork, and we were introduced to so many amazing artists. Of course, I'm talking about Heavy Metal Magazine. That's what this week's video is going to be about. I hope that you'll stick around. Heavy Metal, the American science fantasy comics magazine. Known for its blend of dark fantasy, science fiction, steampunk, and erotic comics. Artists such as Joe Jusko and Mark Bodie got their start on heavy metal. And it introduced many European artists to an American audience. Artists like Mobius, Milo Manara, Philippe Caza, and Claude Forrest. It was unique in the fact that unlike traditional American comic books at the time, it wasn't bound to the restrictions of the Comic Code Authority. Therefore, heavy metal had no limits. Anything goes. And from its first issue in April of 1977, would feature the most mind-blowing artwork, and would continue to do so for the next 40-something years. Though it's been a bit of a bumpy ride. But how did heavy metal become a thing in the first place? Well, it all started after a trip to Europe in 1975. National Lampoon contributor Tony Hendra began expressing interest in European comics, and at the time the National Lampoon New York offices would receive a significant amount of European comic material. In September of '76, editor Sean Kelly singled out a relatively new French comics anthology called Metal Hurlant and brought it to the attention of the company president Leonard Mogul, as he was getting ready to depart for Germany and France to jumpstart the French edition of National Lampoon. When Mogul returned from Paris, he reported that the French publishers had agreed to an English-language version. He suggested the title be Heavy Metal, and it would drop in April of '77 with a cover ad that stated, "From the people who brought you National Lampoon" in the top corner, with cover art from Jean-Michel Nicolet. It debuted in a very nice, glossy, full-color monthly by HM Communications, Inc., a subsidiary of 21st Century Communications, Inc. On the inside of the debut issue, it contained some reprints from Metal Hurlant, some material from National Lampoon, a colorized portion of Von Bodie's Sunspot, an excerpt from Terry Brooks' The Sword of Shannara. Since the color pages from Metal Hurlant had already been shot in France, the budget to reproduce them in the US version was greatly reduced. In spring of 1980, Metal Hurlant would go bankrupt, and Heavy Metal severed ties with its content partner. Metal Hurlant managed to keep publishing, however, and the two magazines reconciled in the summer of '81. Eventually, 9 years after Heavy Metal made its debut, it would drop to a quarterly schedule and would have spring, summer, fall, and winter issues. This started promptly after the last monthly issue in December of 1985. This new quarterly schedule promised an increase in length as well as featuring complete stories as opposed to broken up and spread out parts. Metal Hurlant would fold for good in 1987, forcing Heavy Metal to expand its reach for new material. In '89, Heavy Metal would switch to a bi-monthly release schedule. Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, bought Heavy Metal Magazine in May of 1992 for $500,000. He grew up reading it and was a huge fan. So from mid-92 through about 2014, the magazine was published by Eastman's publishing entity, Metal Mammoth Inc. He would serve as the magazine's editor-in-chief for years as well, even a few years after he had sold it and he was no longer owner. Eastman would sell it in 2014, and he would sell it to David Boxenbaum and Jeff Krelitz, a music veteran and a film producer. Eastman continued as the editor-in-chief for 2 more years, and he would serve as publisher of the magazine through 2020. And was a minority investor in the new Heavy Metal, which became at that point published by Heavy Metal Media, LLC. Heavy Metal's 300th issue was published in 2021 and featured work by a bunch of brilliant artists. It also contained interviews and testimonials from writers discussing the impact the magazine had on them as teenagers. In the fall of 2020, the magazine entered into an agreement with online marketplace Whatnot to publish the following 12 issues of the magazine. But soon afterwards, the magazine announced that it was ceasing publication of what they described as the first volume of the magazine. The last issue of the first volume, number 320, was to come out in October of 2022, and volume 2 would be published by Whatnot with issue 1 in 2023. But that never happened, as Heavy Metal would shut down in December of 2022. This was initially intended to be a temporary suspension. The magazine worked to rectify subscription non-fulfillments and non-payments to artists and vendors. The CEO stepped down and was then replaced. And on October 15th of 2024, Heavy Metal International LLC announced that they would be relaunching the magazine in 2025 and began a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign for the first issue. It would drop a few weeks ago at the time of this video to much success. It seems to be well received among other people like myself. In Heavy Metal's history, it's spawned some cool movies and spin-off series as well that are worthy of checking out. The magazine was credited for having exposed Americans to European comics and the breathtaking artwork of the continent's top cartoonists and set no boundaries, allowing artists to do what they do best. And as I wrap up today's video, I'll throw up on the screen a slideshow of some amazing heavy metal artwork. Enjoy. And I would highly recommend checking it out for yourself if you see it in a comic shop or a bookstore near you. Now's the time where I would like to pause and take a moment to shout out the channel members. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you all helping me grow the channel and helping me put together donation boxes to distribute to people who may need them. I'm going to be making some huge announcements soon. Some big giveaways will be coming up in the future for channel members. So if you're thinking of joining, it's only $1.99 per month, less than the price of your cheapest comic book. I appreciate the consideration, and I appreciate all of you that currently support the channel. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. We got some big news coming soon, so stay tuned, y'all. It's going to be some really, really cool giveaways. We're going to do a cool live stream real soon. And I want to thank all of you guys that came through to check out the video this week. I'm dropping new videos every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you like what you saw this week, please come back, check it out next week. Please hit that like button. Please make sure that you are subscribed. And please have a fantastic week. Be safe out there. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.